Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please permit me to stand up. I need to burn up a little bit of calories too. Tukje drwe tenze jomde de tenzam te bangyu de tukin kyo to somne se sange mingi la bindura la chate. Well, ladies and gentlemen, having paid my homage to Medicine Buddha, please permit me to pay my homage to Yudo Yundan Gombo, who is considered the father of Tibetan medicine. And he also made the first draft of the Gyushi, the fundamental of Tibetan medicine. This is the text which we study in 7 long years of training. And this text is called Gyushi because it contains 4 tantra. And it contains 156 chapters written so beautifully, around 5,900 verses. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before I actually touch into my responsibility of talking about the diagnosis in Tibetan medicine, I take it my responsibility to devote a couple of slides to our institute and also lay a little bit of foundation about what Tibetan medicine is, because I know this hall is packed with learned people and very bright students over here, so obviously Tibetan medicine is something which many people do not have really a good acumen of, so I think it's important on my part to say a little bit of what our institute and Tibetan medicine actually is. Mensakhan is a Tibetan word which means Institute of Tibetan Medical and Astro Science, and this was first incepted in 1961 by His Holiness the Dalai Lama from his own pocket. And today what we have in this time, all the people who have directly, indirectly benefiting from Tibetan medicine, and we younger generation of Tibetan people who we are proud to be a Tibetan and walking shoulder to shoulder with the rest of our brothers and sisters all over the world is all nothing but because of His Holiness' kind and farsightedness. And let me tell you, the modus operandi of Mensakhan, the Tibetan Medical and Astro Institute, is nothing but to preserve the twin knowledge of Tibetan medicine and astrology. Under the umbrella of Mensakhan, we have 8 cultural departments, and these are like the Tibetan Medical and Astro colleges, which takes care about inculcating the medical and astro students in giving them the rigorous training of medicine and astrology in their 7 long years. And they also take care of conducting the 5 and 10-day courses to non-Tibetan speakers who are really have a very strong hunger to learn Tibetan medicine and astrology. And now we have continuous requests from different parts of the world for such an short-term courses to be conducted by Mensakhan. And apart from that, we also have the Clinical and Research Institute, which actively works on proving the efficacies of Tibetan medicine and also comparative studies about Tibetan medicine and modern school medicine, as well as Ayurveda and homeopathic medicine as well. And then we have Pharmaceutical Department, which brings out products of Tibetan medicine, giving services to so many people all over the world. And we have the documentation and publication where I'm coming from, and this department takes care about preserving and looking out for old manuscripts which are not available in the market at the moment. And we are also taking care of the website on Tibetan medicine and astrology, where people can come online to seek any advices pertaining to this. And we also have a herbal section. We also have a medical department which take care about all the herbs and minerals that are used in Tibetan medicine. And apart from these 8 different culture departments, we also have 54 branch clinics all over India who render health service to nearly 6 lakhs of patients in 1 year alone. And apart from giving the, the awareness of health to a community and brothers and sisters in the local Indian countries, our department also, our institute also provides free medicines to the senior citizens who are above 60 years of age and newcomers from Tibet. And we also provide concessional medicines to monks and nuns and students amounting more than 18 million Indian rupees in a year. And this institute has 531 staff and 45 retired staff still under its payroll. So looking from how big the family of Mensakhan is, probably you would be able to just assume how strong the institute is. Well, to build up the foundation of Tibetan medicine, let me tell you, Tibetan medicine enjoys a history of nearly 3,000 years. And let me also tell you that Tibetan medicine is not just a system itself, it's an art. I tell my friends it's a very strong art because Tibetan medicine tells us how to live a life skillfully. And to live a life skillfully, devoid of any illness, is nothing but the greatest art a person can actually aspire for. And then I also tell my friends, I don't know whether Professor Joyce agree with me, but I strongly claim that Tibetan medicine is a science because it is set on established theories which can be empirically proven from every angle and every degree. And I also say to my friends that Tibetan medicine is a big philosophy itself because Tibetan medicine has a very strong relationship with Buddhism. So Buddhism itself being such a profound philosophy, there's no denying of the fact that Tibetan medicine too is a big philosophy. And so Tibetan medicine, being a Tibetan, I would say that Tibetan medicine is a testament of a civilization which enjoys a very strong and very intimate relation between the macrocosmic and the microcosmic world. So when we talk about the relationship between the microcosmic and the macrocosmic world, I think this stays very close to this conference theme, which is the Cosmology and Consciousness, which in Tibetan we say nothing but Chinu, Jikde the Nangchu Semjer. So that obviously touches very closely with the concept or the theme of this conference. And the reason why why I'm saying that this Tibetan medicine is a testament of a culture which closely understands the subtle relationship between microcosmic and the macrocosmic world is because we understand the role of the 5 cosmophysical elements. When we talk about the 5 cosmophysical elements, as Dr. Joss was showing us about the ancient Greek paradigm, so Tibetan medicine also very strongly understands about the role of 5 cosmophysical elements. In Tibetan medicine, we say, which means nothing but this human body is nothing but a composition of 5 cosmophysical elements. The disease that we try to remedy is nothing but a manifestation of the disturbed states of 5 cosmophysical elements. And the remedy itself, which we use in the form of diet, lifestyle, medicine, therapies, is nothing but a derivation of the 5 cosmophysical elements. So in a nutshell, what we say is human body, the disease, the remedy is nothing but the 5 cosmophysical elements. So when we talk about the disease, it could be a physical disease, a mental disease, or spiritual disease, whatever. Okay? And then Dr. Joyce says, very strongly talks about the false causation, but Tibetan medicine talks very strongly about the law of causality because we say, that means the result can never be contrary to what the cause is. So Tibetan medicine very strongly, whether it's about understanding the pathology, whether it's understanding the physiology, whether it's understanding how to keep the intimate and balanced and homeostatic level of the human body along with the environment, we always very strongly try to catch hold of the cause. Even in the disease management, we say, what is the cause of a disease? We do not say what are the symptoms of disease. So therefore, for Tibetan medicine, the cause is very important. So another important factor why I'm also putting stress on this law of causality is Tibetan medicine, as I told you in the beginning, has a very strong relation with Buddhism. So therefore, I would say that this causation and the cause and effect plays a very important in understanding the very subtle relationship and different facets of the Tibetan medicine. And well then, as I told you, Tibetan medicine is a big philosophy from the background that Buddhism is a big philosophy. So Tibetan medicine at every step, every level talks very strongly about many, many influences of Buddhism. Of course, there's no denying of the fact that the very foundation of the Tibetan medicine is derived from the Pen tradition. In Tibetan, we say that the very foundation or the very seed from which Tibetan medicine has grown up is nothing but the very principle of the Pen tradition, which is pre-Buddhist tradition. Then after Buddhism came into Tibet, then there have been a lot of changes in the very concept of Tibetan medicine. And then as we can see now, presently in the very text which we have been using since 8th century have a strong influence of Buddhism. And one of the very important concept of the relationship between Tibetan medicine and how Buddhism have influenced Tibetan medicine is like what Geshe-la told us about Marikpa, or the ignorance in the morning. So in Tibetan medical text also it says, Nenam kungi gune Marikpa, Tame Tomba no Marije Pena, Chani Kala thinking Rangi Tima de the meditation to Gun, the one Shijuna and Marit de Meneda tell me see. It says that the root or the primary cause of all illnesses is nothing but the fundamental ignorance. And that ignorance is nothing but lack of understanding of the intrinsic self. And it's there, and text has given a very beautiful metaphor. It says, you can see a bird soaring very high in the sky. No matter how high the bird square, somewhere or the other on the ground, the shadow is always there. So human being, no matter how much we are blessed with good health, good physique, good luxury, whatever convenience that we are blessed with, but since we are never devoid of the fundamental ignorance, we can never be free from the suffering. So this is one simple point where I can talk about the relationship between Tibetan medicine and the Buddhism. And when we talk about the ethics of physician, there's a strong, very, very strong influence of Buddhism in Tibetan medicine. When we talk about the morality of the physician, when we talk about the role of ethics of physician in attuning one's mind and one's action in rendering service to a patient, it talks about how one should generate that compassion, deep compassion, and how we should adopt that 4 steps of immeasurables, that immeasurable joy, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable love, and immeasurable equanimity. So how these 4 immeasurable contains the physicians in overflowing of one's ego. So for physician, how they contain one ego and how they goes in the field in a service to the patient has a very strong implication and influences of Buddhism too. And then when we talk about the cosmology and macrocosmic and the microcosmic, one important factor when I can relate to this present conference is about the role of 5 cosmophysical elements, because when we talk about the embryology, Tibetan medicine, the subject of the embryology is so broadly emphasized in the medical text. So it says how the 5 cosmophysical elements act in contributing to the formation of a body. And along with that, when you talk about the disintegration of the body or the process of death, it very subtly tells us about how the dissemination and dissolution of each element plays an important role on how we can conceive things, how our physical changes takes place. And again, touching back to the relationship between Tibetan medicine and Buddhism, when we talk about different modes of meditation, we also have the Tokdam, which is nothing but the death meditation. We talk about how some great practitioners could prolong the process of body decay after their clinically proven death. So in Tibetan medicine, when we talk about the dissemination and dissolving of one element into the next element, which tells about how it affects a physical body and how it affects a consciousness. So before our consciousness ultimately transmits into the intermediate state, we talk about the Yishegi Lung or the Nyimyisem. So therefore we talk about, in the medical text it says, Lung Nyu Kala Tembe Chu Che. So it does not say that everything ceases. It only says that Lung Nyu Kala Tembe Chu Che. Yeah? So when the air elements dissolve into the space, then the external breathing ceases. It does not say about the internal breathing. So what does it mean? It means that the person, when the air elements dissolve into the space element, the external or the very physical or the cellular respiration only ceases, whereas the respiration of the inner, the wisdom mind, is still there. That is how a great practitioner, when they are able to maintain the integrity of the consciousness before awaiting, and how they are able to accumulate and energize the different chakras into final culmination into the heart chakra, is a great profound testament of how Buddhism and Tibetan medicine also plays an important role. And one important factor I also wanted to tell you about the relation or the effect or influences of Tibetan medicine and the Buddhism is also, when we talk about the great tantric practitioners, we say that for a great tantric practitioner to have a complete emancipation without basic knowledge of Tibetan medicine, it is never possible, because the great Tantra practitioner, they need to work on the different channels of the body. They need to work on the different chakras of the body. So until and unless you don't know how your physical body is actually formed, how could you really work on controlling the different channels and different chakras? So therefore, I say that Tibetan medicine too plays a very important role in achieving the spiritual enhancement. Well, not taking much of your time, Tibetan medicine also has a very strong relationship between the Tibetan astrology and astronomy. Many of our friends in the West say, oh, why Tibetan medicine has got anything to do with astrology? They are entirely different field of study. But in Tibetan medicine, again, coming very closely to the conference theme, the cosmology and consciousness, Tibetan medicine very strongly talk about how the external environment, how external atmosphere influences the physical body. I may get time to talk a little bit about influences of external factors on a human body. When we talk about the pulse analysis, we say that how at different season it affects a body, because of the influences of different elements in the atmosphere, could bring changes in the nature of pulse and nature of a body. So therefore, a physician also needs to be a very good astrologer, because unless and until he don't know what is prevailing on the environment, he would not be able to understand what are the changes that's going to take on our body. So therefore, a physician needs to be very, to some extent, good in astrology and astronomy, because this is the space where we dwell in. Without knowing the space, without knowing the house where you are going to stay, you won't be able to live a healthy life. Okay, the modus operandi of Tibetan medicine, to tell the ladies and gentlemen, is foremostly is to prevent diseases, and then to heal the patient, and then to prolong life and improve the quality of life, and achieve the triple fruit of dharma, wealth, and happiness. In Tibetan medicine, we say, maybe I forgot. I have few friends here, they can help me. So sorry, big kare. Mina never do now so the sorry when Mengala labar chaos. So the very foremost purpose of the Tibetan medicine, it says Mina never is nothing but the prevention of illnesses. So this is one of the principal modus operandi of Tibetan medicine, and then healing the patient, and then prolonging life and improving the quality of, not just prolonging life like you hook a patient on a life-saving machine. So you also need to improve the quality of the life itself, and ultimately to achieve the triple fruit of dharma, wealth, and happiness. Well, Tibetan medicine talk about three broad subjects when you study Tibetan medicine. That is understanding the body in health and disease, and diagnosis, and ultimately treatment of ailments. Well, now I'm coming back to what I was requested to do. Okay, diagnosis in Tibetan medicine in the allegorical tree. This is Thangka painting done in the 17th century under the order of Disasangye Gyaltso, the regent of the 5th Dalai Lama. So it beautifully tells us about the very full concept of the diagnosis. This is just an overview. So it tells us the one root, that is the diagnosis, and the trunk are three. These are the visual, the palpation, and the interrogation. 8 branches, these are the different visuals on how you should check the patient's tongue, how you should check the urine, and the pulsation is different pulse of the 3 nyepas, and the interrogation of how the causes and symptoms and how the aggravation and assimilation of diseases, and Leaves further describes. So this is just an outline of how Tibetan medicine talks about the diagnosis. And in actual, the diagnosis is, I don't have much time, so I'll have to rush. Well, the diagnosis is very grossly categorized into diagnostic principle and diagnostic method. In Tibetan medicine, the reason why I also say that Tibetan medicine is a science is because it's based on a set of established theories. And this is one of the also very important established theories, diagnostic principle. So Tibetan medicine, some people may think that Tibetan doctors, they just read your pulse, they just shake a little bit of urine and then just give you a few balls of pills. But that is really not so. Really, that's really not so. So diagnostic principle is a very strong basis on which Tibetan doctors see pulses, touch pulses, feel pulses, and then come to the urine, and then interrogation also plays a very important, it's a very broad subject. And Tibetan medicine also says that without knowing the actual diagnosis, the doctors is like a person so ignorant that they don't know the differences between the steam and the smoke. So therefore we say it's like, just as we correlate, just as we infer the relationship between the fire and the smoke, the symptoms and nature of the illness has to be accordingly correlated. So if a doctor is so ignorant, so poor equipped with the principle of diagnosis and method of diagnosis, then he would be something who would not be able to distinguish between what is really steam and whether it's a smoke. And one could just merely say, oh, now it's soon going to rain because there's clouds up in the sky. Not all clouds really brings out rain. So therefore, diagnostic principle is very important, because until and unless you're not fully acquainted with the principle and methods of the diagnosis, you really can't come and descend down to the good treatment. And how can you help a person when you are not able to come to any conclusive diagnosis? Okay. In the diagnosis principle, we have three broad subjects. There's the actual diagnosis, and diagnosis through indirect skillful means, and 4 diagnostic criteria of patient. An actual diagnosis is nothing but the diagnosis based on the actual nature of illnesses. And how do we know the actual nature of illnesses? And this is only when we know what are the causes and conditions. As I told you, there cannot be any result which has nothing to do with the causes. What the cause may be, the result would be. So therefore, it is very important for a Tibetan physician to know what are the causes and conditions which has really catapulted into that kind of illnesses. So therefore, causes and conditions for which give rise to that particular diseases of whether it's Lung, Tibetan or Pagan has to be very thoroughly understood by the physician before coming to any conclusive diagnosis. And then the second important thing is diagnosis based on sign and symptom. Sign and symptom is very important, because without understanding the sign of symptom, you would never be able to correlate the suffering and the cause and condition. So we said that sign and symptom are like the medium through which illnesses can be related to doctors to facilitate that helping hand to the patient. And then we have diagnosis based on benefits and harmful effect. That is because once to reach out to a conclusive and very accurate diagnosis, not only the understanding of cause and condition plays an important role, understanding of signs and symptoms is not just enough. You also need to understand how is the effects of benefits and harmful effects of diet, lifestyle, medicine, or therapy. Because whatever food we eat, whatever lifestyle that we indulge us in, or the medicine and therapy that we seek help to, ought to have an effect on a physical body. So based on that effects of diet, lifestyle, medicine, and therapy, you would know whether you have come accurately to a right diagnosis or not. So these are some of the parameters through which you can check and counter-check whether your diagnosis was actually coming to the right conclusion or not. And then diagnosis based on cause and conditions are like some of the factors like season, spirit, diet, and lifestyle. I don't have much time, so I will skip the slide. And then diagnosis based on signs and symptoms are, as I told you, you have to know what are the characteristics of the different nyepa or the principal energies which brings disorder in Tibetan medicine. In Tibetan medicine very strongly believes in the principle of Lung, Tibetan, and Pagan. These are the 3 principal energies which, when are in balanced state, helps for the proper development of a physical body, maintaining good health, giving a sharp mind. But when it gets disturbed, as I told you, Lung, Tibetan, and Pagan is nothing but a composite of 5 cosmophysical elements, then it results into diseases. So therefore, you need to know what are the characteristics of these Lung, Tibetan, and Pagan in the homeostatic level, and what are the characteristics of these Lung, Tibetan, Pagan when they are in disturbed state, when they're increased, when they're decreased, when they're accumulating, when they're manifesting, or when they're pacified. So you need to know the different characteristics of these Lung, Tibetan, and Pagan in its very different and subtle levels. And then apart from that, to have a very accurate diagnosis in understanding the sign and symptom, it's not only the characteristic or the functional properties of the nyepa that works on a physical body and mind on a very subtle level. We also need to know how our sensory organs also plays an important role, because this is a medium through which we can come to a conclusion. These are the parameters through which we can judge, and these are the kind of what Dr. Joss was telling us about the data collection. So these, the five sensory organs, how they work, and the objects, how they're perceived. Like we say, like we generally, we have a saying, a patient who's jaundice could even see a white conch as a yellow conch. So these are some of the things, how your sensory organs perceive an object. And then the 5 ways, these are again very important because these are the end result of a body. So like the blood, the vomit, the diarrhea, and the spudiums, and the lymph fluids. So these are also some of the important factors that we really need to understand. What is the nature of the stool when that's in a healthy state? Like we say, in general, we say the healthy stool should be like a banana. It's a joke, but it's really true. So therefore, how your feces transform also indicate what are the disturbance that's going inside your body. Okay, I know we don't have much time. Then there are modes of different understanding of sign and symptom, then process. I'll really have to rush down. Then understanding benefits and harmful effect. I've already touched the topic a little bit. Then diagnosis through indirect skillful means is again a very important imperative for a physician, because the physician is also a person who dwells in a society. So he also needs to preserve his reputation, and also it's not only a matter of preserving one reputation, but also needs to be an individual who a patient, who a person in a suffering state can come to you and who can rely on you. So therefore, that breach of trust is very important. So therefore, this diagnosis through indirect skillful means are some of the methods. They are very popular 8 methods through which a doctor can come and contact with the patient. Sometimes, I don't know how many of you have sat in a doctor's chambers, but sometimes you come across very difficult patient. You come across patient who comes to you, but is not ready to speak even a word. Then how could you help them? Then sometimes you come across a patient, you have only 30 minutes for him, then he just never talks about stopping his conversation. Then so these are some of the methods through which a physician can help to derive the right information from the patient who talks so much, or also from a patient who don't speak at all. So these are some of the parameters through which we do. And then there are 4 diagnostic criteria of patient. Of course, as a physician, like in the school medicine, you have the Hippocratic oath. Like also in Tibetan medicine, you also have obligation and responsibility towards any being who comes to you and who comes to seek your help. But then you also, as a physician, you also need to do who are the cases, what are the cases, which are the cases for which you can help. Otherwise, it would be a sheer wastage of your time, their money, their energy, your energy, everything. So therefore, in Tibetan medicine, it very elaborately, very beautifully tells us about cases which are curable, cases which are incurable, which are merely curable, which are hopeless cases. And this can be categorized on the basis of nature of disease, nature of doctors. This is again very important. Just having a certificate of a qualified doctor is not sufficient enough for you to be able to help a suffering Lord. So this, as a being doctor, it's very important for us to bear in mind. So therefore, the quality, the ability, the capability, the motivation, the morality of the physician also plays a very important. Then the nature of the patient, the nature of illnesses, and just having a patient, inflicted with disease, and a very capable doctor present there is not going to solve the problem. Then you also need the attendant for the physician. So these are the 4 factors through which you can understand whether you can ably help the patient or not. And then again, when you talk about the hopeless cases, there might be some of you people who must be very skeptical and saying, as a doctor, you should try to help no matter whether you're going to success or not until the end of the day. But in Tibetan medicine, we talk about 9 fatal cases on which you are not able to help. So these are merely extending their life or like that. And then diagnostic method, as I told you, are the visual observation, palpation, and questionnaires. And visual observation, you have to see and observe different characteristics of physical structure of different byproducts and different ways and different cases. We don't have much time, I'm sure. So then one of the very popular methods through which Tibetan doctors employ in understanding and visual observation is tongue and the urine analysis. So urine analysis is very broadly explained in 8 different sections, so elaborate, so profound. And in ancient Greek, they say that urine is a mirror of one's body. So very strongly Tibetan medicine talks about the urine analysis. Apart from just physical changes, you can also understand the various influences of the incantation of the evil spirits from the urine too. And then in palpation, you have palpation of osculation, percussions, different ways of understanding the nature of illnesses, and one of the most popular is the pulse diagnosis. And pulse diagnosis is a subject which you can spend months and months and months together to understand it, not just to talk about acquiring the practice and ability to understand, but just going theoretically in Tibetan medicine to understand the pulse diagnosis would take months together. So I will not indulge in it. And then questionnaire is very important. As I told you, there are 3 methods of diagnosis in Tibetan medicine: visual observation, palpation, and interrogation, or the questionnaire is the same. So that is, in Tibetan medicine, questionnaires plays a very important role. It acts as a method of deriving information from patient, but simultaneously it's like a two-way traffic. Then it's also a method through which we can counsel a patient. So therefore, questionnaires plays a very important role. And in Tibetan medicine, our text very strongly says that questionnaires is a parameter through which it can help to confirm what your conclusion is. Okay? And then there are 10 parameters through which you can conclude the questionnaire modules. Well, and to substantiate how profound and how effective Tibetan medicine is, let me share some of the researches that is done by Tibetan medicine. In 1994, on some 103 patients, Mensakhan has done a research on rheumatoid arthritis with a control group given medicine on school medicine, mainly painkillers, and they have come out with the result that Tibetan medicine is very effective in improving the joint movement. And then in 1997, Mensakhan made an open randomized control study on 200 patients of non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. And they have, research was done in collaboration with All India Institute of Medical Science in Delhi. And we have a very, one of the India's top-rated statisticians who have given result on this. And it shows that Tibetan medicine gave a very good result in controlling the fasting and postprandial blood glucose level, as well as the hemoglobin A1C. And then one of the important issues in Tibetan medicine is we also use processed mercury in Tibetan medicine. So there are many people in the West who are skeptic about mercury. So it's not that Tibetan medicine do not know mercury is in its raw form is a toxin. But in Tibetan medicine, or generally we have a saying that so it says, if you know how you can skillfully use even a toxic, highly potent toxic like mercury can be used as the highest potency medicine. And if you are so ignorant, then even the greatest medicine like the sandalwood can become detrimental to your health. So therefore, Tibetan medicine has a vast knowledge on different ingredients that are available on Mother Earth, and we use processed mercury in Tibetan medicine. So there are a few skepticals who says, oh, Tibetan medicine use processed mercury, so we really need to be cautious about it. So to answer to this question and all this skepticism, Mensakhan has done a retrospect open for a larger group study, and they have bring out a result, very good result, that consumption of processed mercury in a compounded Tibetan medicine does not give any health hazard, and there has no any relevant kidney and liver function test, and it also tells about how some of these patients who have been using mercury for some 20-30 years have shown no clinical implication that it is detrimental to health. Now Mensakhan is following up this research on the processed mercury, and now we have some 200 patients on which we are doing a broad spectrum of research. And this research was done in collaboration with the Natural Medicine Research of Israel, Telek Hospital, and also the Liverpool University, who does the laboratory tests. And then we also have a research on hepatitis B. I will not indulge in this. And we also are having good result on many cancer patients. And before I conclude, I would like to dedicate my presentation to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. As I told you in the beginning of my presentation, that we owe all the greatness, all the graciousness, and all the sick people who have directly and indirectly benefited from Tibetan medicine owes the greatness and contribution from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So to conclude, please permit me to borrow a word from him. He says, I strongly believe that Tibetan medicine system is one of the means by which we Tibetans can contribute to the well-being of others, even while we ourselves live as refugees. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.